Good afternoon, everybody. Today, we are going to have a very interesting masterclass with Paul Mendocha about positioning yourself after the pandemic. To begin, we will have a small dynamic in which you're all invited to participate with a couple of surveys we are going to make online. To do this, we are going to go to this website called slido.com. You can join it on your internet browser. Just type slido.com. I will show you how to get there. This is the website. Just type slido.com. Oh, wait, slido.com. And then you type yourself. I think this is it. No, this is the, wait. Catherine, please, could you share your screen with, yeah, it's yourself. So you get into slido.com, you write yourself, and then we will have these questions that we are sharing on the screen. How energized are you feeling this afternoon? This is the first question to begin. So please, if you could get into this website, slido.com, and begin commenting on how energized you're feeling today. This is going to be a very interesting webinar, so please, I need you all to cheer up. I mean, we're going to have a specialist in turning industries around. You know, part of the entrepreneurial mindset is always to look opportunities inside a crisis. So don't forget, just sign in to slido.com and then type yourself, #yourself. Okay, so we've got a couple of responses. People feeling kind of active today, an average of 4.0. That's good, that's good. That's better. Oh no, more people getting more energized. Okay, so we are getting familiarized with this website. Let's go to the following question, shall we? So the next question is, which topic would you like to discuss today? All right, so everyone can feel free to comment any word about the topic you would like to discuss today. Professional brand, all right, that's part of, yeah, that's very interesting. It's part of the networking world. You know, you have to have a good professional brand to relate with people and someday close big deals. Which other topic would you like to discuss today? Remember, we are going to have a master class with an expert of industries turnaround. Turnaround means that, for example, pardon me if I'm wrong, but what I've always known about this term is when an industry is kind of going broke, there are specialists that help you turn the business around and make it profitable and scalable. Self-motivation, the future. That's good. Which other topics? Please, we need a lot of material to make this class more impactful. Maybe someone would like to talk about a certain business, like the gastronomic industry or craftsmanship, networking, brand, connect, future, virtual. That's good. Now you're all getting engaged. That's really good. So there's a lot of things. Consultant, business, professional, future, connect. All right, I guess that's fair enough. Now we have many topics to discuss. All right, let's get Well, then the winner is motivation. Okay, let's go to the next question, please. The next one is, maybe there's no other question, or wait. Okay, that was the last question. Now we are already set, ready to go with John Paul. John Paul is a turnaround consultant, co-author of Most Businesses Fail in the First 5 Minutes. It takes them 3 to 5 years to realize it. All right, so John Paul, please feel free to join us. And thank you for being here with us. We are all looking forward to learn as much as we can from all your expertise. Okay, wait, the audio is failing, I think.
All right, is that better?
That's good, John. Hi, John, how are you?
I'm doing great. Giuseppe, thank you for having me on, and Catherine. It's great to be able to get with everybody and talk to them today. And hopefully what we're going to do is by the end, everybody's going to have a 5 on that, how they feel, and hopefully they're going to be energized. And most importantly, they're going to learn some things about what they need to do personally so they can make it not only through this crisis, but also become more successful going forward in the future.
All right, John, so I'll leave you to have your class, and I'll be here if anything else needed. Okay, thanks.
All right, let's get the presentation started here, and technology being what it is. And
you just press share screen, and then there you go.
Yeah, just a little bit of a lag. Well, welcome everybody. I'm really glad that you're able to make it. And so this is about positioning yourself after the pandemic. And the reason why I called it after the pandemic is that most of what people are doing now is sitting around, or they're nervous, or they're concerned, or what that happens to be. And I just want to go through the steps that you need to take now to make sure you're ready for what's going to happen as we go forward. Okay. So we put a little slide up. That way you kind of know roughly where I'm at. I'm in Southern California, and coming to you from California with love. And you know, and we will go through some very interesting things. I always like to start off with a quotation, and the quotation from Winston Churchill is, "What a tragedy if that moment finds them unprepared or unqualified for that which could have been their finest hour." The question is will this be your finest hour? Now you may say, wait a second, the entire world is going through a pandemic. Well, you know, you get to the finest hour by being in challenging times, and we are in challenging times. And what you need to do is you need to keep this in mind is, are you preparing yourself? Are you getting ready? So you will make sure that the opportunities that will present themselves, and there will be many of them, you're going to take hold of those and make those work for you. Now, before we get too deep into this, I think you should know a little bit about our agenda, which is, so we're going to cover 3 areas. Number 1 is why personal positioning. I'll attempt to cover all of the words that you put up, all of the discussions that you had, but we'll talk about why personal positioning is important for every single one of you. I'll also bring you what I consider a message from the future. If I could go forward in time and see what the future is like and came back, well, that's what we're going to do today, is we're going to give you that information that I think is what I believe is going to happen. And finally, now knowing what's going to happen is one thing, but making something happen based upon the information of what is going to happen is very important. So we'll talk about pivoting, moving forward, and what that means, and how each and every one of you, no matter what your situation, can in fact learn from this lesson. And then we'll wrap it up, time permitting, with some questions, and we'll go from there. Now, who is John Paul Mendocha? So why should you listen to me? Why does this matter? I mean, you've all spent some energy and effort and time. So let me just give you a brief background about myself. First off, I've been a very busy entrepreneur. understand that this is a group of entrepreneurs or wannabe entrepreneurs. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. And a serial entrepreneur means I've been doing entrepreneur things. I've been starting businesses, building businesses, growing businesses, changing businesses, selling businesses. So I started my first business at 15, and it was a real business. It wasn't like a kiddie business, it was a real business. And frankly, I did a leverage buyout when I was in my early 20s. I did it by reading a book. I would not recommend that to anybody. I've done consulting. I've worked in the defense electronics business, in which I have a client and, in fact, have a principal equity in that business also. I've worked with medical clinics. I've worked with online businesses, high tech, financial services, the insurance industry, a wide variety from retail to business to business to business to institutions and beyond. The important part about it is that I've covered a very large area of business. That's step number one. Step number two is the fact that while most of my friends, my peers, my classmates were going off to college, I went to Las Vegas and I was a professional gambler for 4 years. Now that's important to the story as we go forward, because during those 4 years, I learned how to play professionally blackjack, poker, and then I actually learned how to do what is called proposition bets. Now, to do that, you have to be very skilled, very fast, because I learned about the intersection. You may want to write this down, the intersection of psychology and math. Because what you really want to do is you wanted to know the probabilities and know the numbers, but more importantly, the psychology of people. So I became an expert at reading people, which turned out to be a very good skill going forward. Now, the problem with it is that I decided that I did not want to live that life for my entire life. So what I did was I actually left Las Vegas and I came home. And when by coming home, I had to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And we'll get to that part in just a second. But what I really understood is I understood how to take very difficult situations, high stress. Does this sound like what we're doing today? High stress, high pressure, and be able to live in that world. And in fact, as I developed my consulting business over the years, I became a turnaround specialist because I could step into very difficult situations and turn those businesses around very rapidly. And that's important because we're going to be seeing a lot of change coming up. Lots of businesses are going to need turnarounds. Lots of destruction is going to take place. I've also been a professional speaker. So I deliver a weekly webinar, just like this is a webinar. It is a paid for fee webinar. And the importance of me bringing it up is that this isn't something I just started last week. I've actually delivered 818 of these to clients all around the globe. And in fact, I do this every single Monday, 50 times a year. I've also, and my specialty is as I work in messaging and marketing, sales and advertising. I also work in structuring businesses, but that really becomes important because what it did is it drove me to an interesting discovery. And the discovery was the fact that as I was developing and working and moving forward, so I come back from Las Vegas, I get a job with my father, which is really a cheat because, he was going to take me in no matter what. Find out that that's not a great business to be in, which is working for your father. And what I do is I learned the concept of positioning, which is at the core of the book that myself and my co-author, Gabe Batista, put together, which is most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. It just takes them 3 to 5 years to realize it. And of course, we're here today because we wrote a second book, which is Remote Work for a Better World. And that will take us to where we finally get to, which is, see, I'm an expert in turning around businesses, but I'm also an expert in virtualizing businesses and also doing things remotely. All of that, and there's a little bit more, but the point of it is that I think it's worth your while to listen. And more importantly, I'm willing to share things that I normally charge significant amounts of money for, because again, I like to give to everyone that I possibly can because it always helps me grow my business and grow my reach. Now let's get serious. Why personal positioning? So each and every one of us, we start with ourselves. We must understand that we have to position ourselves. And the reason why personal positioning is so critical is that you cannot in any way, shape, or form, in my opinion, ever position something else if you cannot position yourself. Now, you may ask yourself, am I positioned properly? Yes or no? Or, well, maybe I didn't position myself, so maybe I don't have a position. Everyone has a position. Everyone has a position, whether you want to believe it or not. We are all positioned in this world. If I gave you the positioning test and there's a cultural difference between where I live and where you live, but if I said, let's look at some of the major brand names that are out there, if I said a cola drink, in all likelihood, you would say Coca-Cola or Pepsi. Now, understand that those two brands have dominated that soft drink market globally for well over 100 years. Now, the reason why that's important is that not many people can name the third or fourth or fifth or sixth cola drink out there. Well, it's the same thing with personal positioning. You have to decide where you are, because if you can't position yourself, you won't be able to position anything else. And you have to position yourself and understand where you are. See, if I had walked in when I first got back from Las Vegas and said, you should hire me into your business, well, I mean, I know how to count cards. Do you think somebody would have hired me? The answer is no, unless I was back in Las Vegas. But the point of it is that I took the skill set that I had and I said, how do I look at what that is? And then how do I put that to the best effect that I possibly can and build a personal positioning? Because I knew that I could do math very quickly and I could also deal with reading people. Self-awareness. Now, this is a very big topic. We could spend an awful lot of time talking about it, but self-awareness is a very critical aspect of your life. See, you always know more about yourself than any other person can. No one else can know as much about you as you can. Now, there's good and there's bad and there's ugly to that. The good news is that you know what you're capable of doing, you know what you're strong at it. But most of us have lots of personal self-doubts. We have questions that we ask about ourselves. Am I worthy? Am I acceptable? Can I do what I need to do? Maybe I'm just not enough. In fact, one of the challenges of personal positioning is that rarely do we take the talents that we have and in fact put them to the best possible use and exploit them. Primarily because of this. If you are very talented at something, it means that it probably comes easy to you. And then you assume or you think that everyone else is also capable of that. And that's often not the case. But you need to be self-aware. So you need to start looking at yourself a little bit differently. You need to start capturing information about yourself. We looked at some of those words and people are looking for motivation. Well, how about this for a motivation? If you can change how you view yourself and how you position yourself, you can radically change how well and how successful you will be going forward, not only today, but significantly down the road. So self-awareness is very critical. And self-awareness is one of those things that you have to develop and work and hone at and hone. It's something that I work on a very consistent basis. And there are exercises that we talk about, and I'll give you a simple one today. What I want you to do is I want you to write down the things that you love to do, not like to do, not can tolerate to do, but love to do. What are you really, really good at? And if you write those things down, something that just comes to you, it works. Now, lots of times that we try this and maybe we get just a few things. But what you want to do is you want to look for those things that fit and you say, okay, that makes sense that I know how to do these types of things. Now, why is that important? Because when you're going to go out there and build this positioning, and by the way, let me clear up one thing. You cannot have branding. This is my mark, my stake in the road, if you will. You cannot build a brand if you have not established a position. Let me say that again. You cannot build a brand unless you've established a position. And that position needs to be very firm and very direct and very well known. And because of that, most people get it wrong. They say, I'm going to go build a brand in spite of the fact that they do not actually match that with their positioning. See, everybody would like to be number one, right? So all of us who are out there, we sit down and say, I want to be number one. And now my question is, number one in what? Because when we look at it, if it's a sports star, well, there really is a pecking order. There's a hierarchy. There's people who are better than other people. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you say, well, if I can't be that top person, that I actually, really, that isn't going to work. But the question is how do I become number one where? What does that look like? So the reason why we need self-awareness is that we would need to capture this magic. We need to find it. We need to pull it together. The next thing is that what I call the first sale. Now, the first sale means that every single day when you get up, you have to sell a person. You have to sell an exact person. You don't have to go looking for them. They're with you at all times. You have to sell yourself on yourself. The reason why that's so critical, the reason why that's so important is that if in fact you do not believe in who you are, if you cannot project that confidence, if you do not feel that you're worthy and capable of what you're doing, then you're going to have a very difficult time of convincing others. I've found so many people in my life who will sit there and say, John, I wish I could do what you did because, well, but I'm missing some things. Well, I can tell you if you looked at my resume, and I'm very truthful, I'm very open about what my resume looks like. But if you looked at my resume, what you would see is that what I did was I took those unique experiences that I had and I made them work. I didn't try to tell people that I did something I hadn't done. And more importantly, is that what I discovered is that if I could position myself properly, then I could go out there and do and live the life that I wanted to live. So I decided I wanted to be a consultant, not because there was any kind of lineage in my household, not because my father said, oh, yeah, you should become a consultant. In fact, when I became a consultant, I had less awareness by far than I have today and actually had very little experience. The first business that I ever computerized, I literally was one chapter ahead of the business owner and his office manager as I was putting it together. Now, I wouldn't recommend that you put yourself in that kind of at-risk situation, but I knew that I could work fast, I could learn quickly. But what I did was I discovered the things I needed to do to deliver value, because that's really the case. In life, we deliver value to someone else. And when we do, then we reinforce the position that we say we have. By reinforcing that position, by saying, look, I'm doing this and I can deliver value to the world, then what happens is that you change in an extraordinary way how people view you, think about you, and move forward. Now, the reason why we go and start with ourselves is that, frankly, once you position yourself, now opportunities become much more available because now you are this whole person. Now, let me make this very clear. You don't need to stop the world and say, okay, I'm not going to go out and do anything until I've positioned myself and I'm now perfectly positioned. We'll get to why that isn't that important in just a minute. But what you do have to know is where you are and where you're starting, and now get going. So this is a message from the future. Hopefully, many of you have seen this movie, which is Back to the Future. And the reason why I say that is that over the course of my career, I've had the opportunity to be in the right place at the right time. Have you ever heard anybody say that expression? I don't know how it translates into Spanish. But what I can tell you is that many people wish that their timing was better, that they were at that right place and the right time. Well, I have arrived to tell you that you are. Now, I have met a lot of people who were in the right place, who were in the right time, and did not take advantage of their opportunities. In fact, they may not have even seen them as opportunities. They may have seen them as what we're seeing today, which is seeing the crisis that is all around us, seeing the issues that are there. And in fact, we are in the middle of a pandemic, a global pandemic. You are all in shutdown. We're in or lockdown. We're in the same type of situation here. And what happens is that chaos creates opportunities. Chaos creates opportunities. I get the opportunity, because of professionally speaking, to go speak to some very successful people. I spoke at a mastermind group. A mastermind group is where there are like-minded individuals who are interested in a specific topic or a specific area, and they get together and they learn from each other. As I was sitting there and talking to them and presenting to them, I had the opportunity to meet someone who, when the crisis hit just 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, what he did was he saw it as an opportunity and not a crisis. And what he did is he's based in Northern California. So Silicon Valley, he started buying homes. And he started buying homes and raising money to buy homes and more homes and more homes and more homes, because he saw it as an opportunity, a once in a lifetime opportunity, as he said, because that once in a life opportunity was that we had the chance, there is a chance to buy properties at a discount. We can get things done that we could have never gotten done otherwise. So I sat there and I said, well, Johnny, which is his name, Johnny, how many houses do you have? And he said, well, at the peak, after all was said and done, after the crisis was over, after the crash was over, and by the way, we were sitting at a beautiful resort while he's telling me this, is that we ended up with 6,600 houses. Now, all I can tell you is he flew there on a private jet. Now, the point of it isn't the fact that he had 6,600 houses, but how many people saw that crisis take place and say, I'm going to wait until it gets better before I'm going to do something. But that's not what he did. He dove into that and took advantage of that. Well, the crisis that we're about ready to face now, the chaos that exists today, is beyond anything that I've ever seen. As a turnaround specialist, I can tell you, and I can answer Giuseppe's question about the definition of a turnaround. A turnaround is when a business or an industry, but a business in particular, is unhealthy. It's sick. It's losing money. Sales are going down. We're losing the best people. Things aren't taking the right shape. Competitors are hurting us left and right. And what happens as a turnaround specialist is I get to show up in the midst of all of that. And while everyone is leaving, while everyone is exiting, I get to show up, and what do I get to do but fix this with limited resources, limited time, and almost no money to do it. Sounds like a perfect situation. In fact, I said that we would talk a little bit about why my gambling days paid off, and they paid off in a very big way in the turnaround business. And they did because I was sitting there going, wait a second, this is a high pressured, high money environment. I'd been there before, but the rewards were potentially much higher. Now, every time that you turn around a business, every time I've turned around a business, there is quite an exhilaration. Now, lest you think that I do this by myself, I build a team of individuals, hardened, chiseled professionals who will come in and actually make things happen in spite of the worst conditions possible. The reason why I say there are more opportunities that are going to take place in the next 2, 3, 5 years is that in the United States right now, there are 32.5 million businesses. And those are the ones that are above the line. Below the line, small micro businesses, there's probably another 10 or 20 million, but let's say 32.5 million. I did the numbers for this time that we're going to get together in Peru. The last numbers that are published are 2.33 million businesses. And I will tell you right now that all of those businesses, the 32.5 million in the US, with maybe the exception of Amazon and Apple and Google and Facebook, but all of those businesses will need some level or some turnaround. The 2.33 million businesses in Peru, significantly, probably 95, 97, 98% of them will need some level of help and turnaround. If you are ever looking for an opportunity to progress and move fast and quick in industry, this is the time to do it. Now, most people will want to wait. And what they'll do is they'll want to wait until we get to the other side, because once we get to the other side, guess what's going to happen? Then we're going to feel good about ourselves. Then we're going to feel good about the situation. We're going to feel comfortable. And when we feel comfortable, we'll say, great, now you know what? Now I want to go get there. Well, they'll show up, but all of the best deals will be gone. The easy money will have taken place, and they will in fact be on the table scraps, the end side of it. So we are looking at an opportunity base that I have never seen in my entire career as a consultant or as a turnaround specialist. And that is the message I deliver to you from the future. Now, the reason why I believe this is the case is that there's two states of what happens when we hit a crisis, when we hit a situation. The last one that we had a little over 10 years ago, 12 years ago, is what is called a deflection. Now, a deflection is this: you're driving in your car, you have your, husband, wife, significant other, maybe the kids in the back seat, and something falls off the back of a truck, and you swerve out of the way, wake everybody up. They go, "Oh, what's going on?" They, their blood pressure goes up, their adrenaline drops. They get all, oh, wow. And then you move back into the lane because you've avoided hitting that obstacle. You avoided hitting whatever fell off the back of the truck, which could be very dangerous and very bad. Whew, we made it, didn't we? We made it around that. That is deflection. What we are going on, or what we're going through today because of the global pandemic and the coronavirus, is not deflection. When the mortgage crisis hit in the United States, it was some bad news. Now, I don't know how much it hit the rest of the world, but I can tell you, I watched a lot of businesses. I had clients galore that went broke. I had friends who went through the same type of gut-wrenching problems. It took some of them, well, until just a couple of years ago, and now we're back in it. But today, this is different because what has happened is that the entire world is being shut down. I mean, here's something that's just an amazing concept. I mean, just try to wrap your head around this. The oil industry globally is essentially right now broke, bankrupt. Now you may say, "Oh, John, but they're bleeding money." Every country, every oil company, every single day. Now things have recovered just slightly, but that's just a little bit like somebody saying, I feel a little bit better, though I'm on death's door. I'm laying on the end. That is astonishing. If somebody would have told me that that was going to happen, I have clients who are in Houston, and nobody ever saw this coming. Nobody saw that because that is actually not a direct action of the pandemic. It is a sideways move, and it hit pretty hard. So what is inflection? What does that mean? Inflection means that we change course. We're no longer on the same road as before. The item falls off of the truck, or the truck crashes and burns, and we move to a different highway, a different direction, a different place. We are all going to be on a different road. Now, does that mean everybody's going to make that switch, that transition, and get there? The answer is no. Sadly, not. That's why I say there will be lots of destruction. Entrepreneurship deals with that. Entrepreneurship causes that. Entrepreneurship should value it because this is when opportunity strikes. So inflection means that we've moved to a different road, and we will never move back to the other one, in my opinion. Now, you could say, John, it's just your opinion. Well, wait and see. But all I can tell you is that the number of dominoes that are falling, the number of businesses that are going bankrupt, the number of things that are going away, and in an astonishingly fast pace, means that we have inflected and not deflected. The next is this myth of called the new normal. When you're in the middle of chaos, and we are, looking for normalcy, looking for it to all settle down, that's going to happen, but that's going to happen too. The new normal is going to be sometime in the future. And the only way to see exactly what's going to happen is if we go and get into that DeLorean and hit 88 miles an hour and go into the future and see in 5 and 7 and 10 years. By that point in time, those who are seizing these opportunities will be through and successful and done. Everyone else will be wondering what happened. I hope to ask you that you do not become one of those people who is waiting to see what's going to happen. If you're really an entrepreneur, the last thing you want to do is be a person who's going to wait to see what's going to happen. Because what you want to do is you want to be the person who's going to make things happen. And that is very, very critical. Because if you're not going to make things happen, who is going to do that? So there is no new normal that we're going to. That's in the future. That's not now. And that's not where you should be thinking at. So what do? It sounds pretty scary, sounds pretty unnerving, sounds all of those things. Well, let me tell you exactly what you want to do. What you want to do is you want to pivot. Now, why is pivoting important? Remember I said I came back from Las Vegas. I got a job with my father. Not a good idea, not a happy day, didn't make much money. But what I did was as I started learning about the concept of positioning, which of course is something that I have adhered to and worked on for many, many years. And what I did was I sat down and said, I need to go and make a change and move to a different place. Now I call it a pivot. And the reason is that what is a pivot? Well, a pivot is different than a leap. So there are many entrepreneurs who believe in leaping. They get to the edge of the canyon. They get to the edge of that and they want to jump, they want to leap, they want to make it across the other side as if they could grow wings and fly over to the other side. But if you look at the numbers in a good economy, in good times, 80, 90% of companies fail. The reason why we say and claim that most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes is because, in fact, they don't know what their position is. They don't know where they fit in the market. They don't know who they are and what they're doing. So what you want to do is you want to think through this very carefully. So instead of leaping, what I suggest is you do a pivot. And that is what you do is you start by pivoting and moving to a next step. And the point of it is what is the smallest step that you can make to make a significant change in what you're doing? And what you want to do is you want to make sure that you say, okay, I'm going to do that. Let me give you an example. So here I am working for my father, learning about positioning. And what did I discover is the fact that there's this thing called pivoting. And what I could do is I could then go out and make a decision to go for a different market, a different place, and make money. Now I realized that I could sell, I could talk, I could go do those things. So now I started looking for a market. I started looking for a place that I could go make what I called stupid money. Now, why do I call it stupid money? Because they were going to pay me a lot more money than the average person. They were going to pay me a lot more than you would normally get paid in an industry. I also wanted to find a competitive base where I could easily rise to the top. So what I did was I picked high tech, which to some of you may say, wait a second, John, that is a really interesting thing because, high tech, isn't that very competitive? Isn't that hard to do? Isn't that all of those things? And I would say, yes, it is. But one of the things that you want to really get serious about when you're thinking about pivoting is not let that stop you. Because I said, how do I find a niche? How do I find a spot? How do I find an area? So when I found the area that I wanted to do, I said, well, I'm going to go sell in high tech. So bear with me. What did I do? Is I couldn't make the leap to high tech. Nobody would hire me. Everybody looked at my resume, they laughed. They looked at where I had worked for my father, they laughed again. So what I did was I took my first pivot, my first step, my first move. And what I did was I moved to selling office products. Now, when I started selling office products, I quickly became the number one salesperson. Now, what I knew is that maybe I could convince them to get into high tech. Well, that turned out to not be such a smart idea, though I did learn a lot from it. In fact, they would eventually become my first consulting client. I would actually computerize them in a very short order. But what I did realize is that they did not have that vision and could not get there. So I then started plotting, how do I get to that next pivot? How do I get to that next place? So the next step that I got to was, in fact, I started working for a distributor. And by working for this company, I was able to get to high tech. Now, this was the bottom of the bottom of the bottom of the ladder. Well, actually, it was probably under the ladder. That's how far down it was. But it got me exposed. It got me to where I could go. Remember, what is the smallest step that you can make to make progress? That was the smallest step I could make. Now, because of that, and because of my energy, my intensity, and my work ethic, and the fact that I was competing against those who really could not sell very well, what I did was I actually won a contest as an external salesperson. And by doing that, I was actually able to then meet the VP and the founder of this company. They were doing about $40 million a year, which was good money. And I worked my way very hard to pivot to get to move to them. And they needed somebody in Southern California. I lived in Denver, Colorado, which is where I grew up. Now, I violated every single rule for that pivot. I'm talking about the rules of normalcy, which is you never move somebody to a territory. You don't move somebody who doesn't have the right background. You do all of those things. But what I did was by positioning myself and changing how they viewed me is I was able to make that pivot. Well, that pivot got me to California. They paid for the whole thing. And most importantly is that as I became successful, it wasn't until another 2 jobs after that I hit the jackpot, if you will, the company that would actually turn me into a millionaire, the first in my entire family lineage. Now, the reason for that was the fact that I knew what I was trying to accomplish. I was trying to make a pivot. Now, I'm not going to tell you any of this is easy. I'm going to tell you that it is possible. So the point of it is that I made a pivot, and then I made another pivot and another pivot. those 5 steps over a period of time. And if you look at the elapsed time from when I showed up and came back and started working for my father to the point of where I started making more money than my father had ever made in one single year in his business in his life, that was in less than 7 short years. Now, the reason why I say this is that I want you to understand I don't say these things because I haven't done them. I say them because I want to make sure that you know what is possible and why this is so powerful and why this is such a good thing for you to do. Now, here is a key to success, and that is you have to have a commitment to the process. See, once you have a process, once you know what that process is that you have to be committed to it. So I will give you the 3 steps necessary to make pivoting work for you. And it's 3 words. Never stop pivoting. Never stop pivoting. Now you may say, John, can you give me an example that wasn't from years ago in your career? And I can say, absolutely yes. And you know what that is? And that is you are looking at the book that we put together. Gabe Batista and I, we put together a team to put together a book, which was Remote Work for a Better World. Why did that book come about? Where did that come from? Which is why I'm here. See, I wouldn't be here today if we didn't publish that book. We didn't put that book together. Well, what happened is that I actually worked on my book with my co-author, co-conspirator, Gabe Batista. He was helping me get the book done. In fact, he was helping write the book because I was too busy doing business deals. Think about it. 30 years from the time that people started telling me to write a book, I got a book done. And we were going to launch it. And what happened while we were sitting together planning the launch of that book, my dream becoming personified, my dream of being a published author was going to take place on March the 17th. Go back just a few short weeks and look at March the 17th and look at what happened at that point in time. And as we were planning this launch, as we were working hard because we had put in 2 solid years to get to that point in time, the world stopped. The global pandemic hit. And because of that, Gabe and I are sitting there, and when he got off of the airplane and I picked him up because he flew in from Dallas, and I said, we have to write the book, Remote Work for a Better World. He looked at me as if I was crazy. Maybe I was, but what I knew is that we had to do what? Pivot. What is the process? Never stop pivoting. So what we did is we pivoted, and we started on a Saturday, and less than 17 days later, the book, the first version of the book, which is now up on Amazon, came out. Now, the reason why we did that, and in fact, already had to call up because we have a press agent and say, look, we got to go do this other thing. We got a new book. He goes, a new book? Yeah, I know. I'm working on a new book. Nope, we have a newer book. And what we did is you have to be committed to the process. So never stop pivoting. Never stop pivoting. And that is so critical that you get that in your head, because you just need to keep driving that home every single day. Never stop pivoting. Because if you don't, what's going to happen is that you will miss out on opportunities. The last thing in the world I wanted to do after finishing writing a book, after going through all of that pain and suffering and agony and finally getting it done and holding it in my hands and knowing that we had it and we were going up on Amazon, the last thing I wanted to do, not that I don't want to be here with you today, the last thing I want to do was now have to take that and put it aside for the moment and move and pivot to doing what? To writing the next book, which was necessary and topical. In fact, if you look at when we started writing the book, the concept or the idea of how many turnarounds would be available, well, it was very small. In fact, most businesses, even if they need a turnaround, don't want to do a turnaround. They resist change. Humans don't want to change. What we want to do is we want things to stay the same. We want them to be warm and cozy and not have to worry about that. Well, what I'm going to tell you is that we had to pivot. The world is pivoting. In fact, those who will be successful will pivot. Those who are being successful understand that this is a time of opportunity like no other. And you're going to have to think differently, act differently, and be different, and know that you're going to have to be committed to that process. So you have to position yourself, you have to put yourself in the best possible, best favorable light. And then you have to understand that no matter how much work you've put in, you may come to that point in time where you have to stick to the plan. And the plan is to never stop pivoting. If you do that, here's what I believe will happen for you. You will be more successful than you thought possible. You, in fact, will go out and achieve things that you may have thought impossible. In fact, you'll have things happen for you because you will have these eyes, what I call opportunity eyes, that every time you're sitting there, every time you're looking around, every day you see potential where others see lack. You see opportunity where others see crisis. In the middle of that, what you find is that you have the skills, the talents necessary to take advantage of those things. And the other part, the best part about this whole thing, is that you are a force for positive in a world where people are sitting around and complaining about how the world is shut down. Oh, make no mistake, I wish we were on the other path. Make no mistake, I can say that. But here's a very important lesson that I learned sitting at that poker table, where my meal and my ability to survive was sitting in that pot. And that is there are two lessons that I'll share as we wrap up. You must play the hand that you are dealt. We are dealt the coronavirus, and that's the hand we have to play. And on the other side is that if you're involved in something that isn't working, you have to do what every good professional player does, which is you need to dump the hand, have them reshuffle the cards, and play the next one to the best of your ability. If you do that, I believe that you will have tremendous success that you had never had before. And with that, if Giuseppe wants to come back in, I know that you'll have some questions, and I know we have just a little bit of time, but I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Well, Paul, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, Paul, that was amazing. Really, thanks for so much information. First, we are going to present the contact information of the college. So first of all, thanks to everyone who is watching live right now. So if you want to keep in touch with us, you can send an email us at cde@book, or you can follow and contact us in our social media. Thanks for everyone who's been following us right now. And now we're going to go to the questions.
Okay.
All right.